Yo, hey guys, I know, crappy green screen, I apologize. Hey guys, it is Old Man G here. I'm just looking at myself. Is my camera okay? Yes, okay. Back again. And weekly Q&A time, so I put the poll out. I thought, hey, let's get it started. It's Friday. I'm joined obviously with the lovely TomJournalist. It's going to be a very laid-back show. And we are literally basically just going to be answering your questions in the chat, as well as discussing not just United-related transfer news. Obviously, Højlund is the big one that's popping up now, but CAICEDO, Mane, Glazers, all the rest of it. But before we get into it, if you are new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and smash the notification button. Blaze Manchester United News. Now, before we get into it, is everyone hearing me okay? Am I all right? Like I'm coming through okay? Is everything good? Am I good on your end, Tom, as well?
Yeah. You good on my end, G.
Good. Okay, cool. Awesome. Right. Okay. Fine. Okay, so I think let's see who's in the chat. So we got a question already. Thank you so much. So D's Perk says, do you think Tendon Mengi should be given a chance as fifth choice centre back if Maguire leaves? That's a very good question. That is a very, very good question. I'll answer. I think personally for me, I think that he should go on loan. I don't believe in the idea of like a fifth choice centre back, because really and truly, how many games are you going to really play to actually improve your development? And if you look at Manchester United, you've got Lisandro, you've got Varane, okay, fine. You've got Lindelof, and then Shaw could basically come in as left-sided centre back. So he's going, and then you have Maguire, and then you've got Tendon. So you've got to get Maguire first. Obviously, we've got Shaw. So I don't know. I just feel like, maybe if we were in the Europa League, and even then, the Europa League to keep the stack is actually quite competitive, as we've seen. So, no, my personal opinion is that like he's got potential, but what he needs what Ahmad had, and that is a good loan to potentially a championship side, or in my opinion, a good Bundesliga side. To get his development, because I just don't think he's going to get the opportunities to progress. That's my personal opinion. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that I don't think fifth choice centre back's really an option. I don't think it is really anyway. I think really, unless you play three at the back and you need three, and you play three centre halves, having more than 4 centre-backs isn't normally common at many clubs, unless, like you say, the young players like such as Ten and Mengi would be. But I agree with you. I think alone to somewhere like the Championship, I don't know, a Derby County or a Middlesbrough, you know, give him to Carrick a minute at Middlesbrough and see if he can build maybe the lads' confidence up and get him a bit of experience, I think. But we did that before with Twanzebe a couple of years ago. We sent him on loan to Aston Villa. He got promoted with them and was one of their best players in that season. Then where is he now? He's been released from Manchester United 3-4 years later down the road. So unless, I don't know, you want to try and get a bit of value for him and send him out on loan and then maybe ship him off next summer somewhere, then I don't know. But I think as a young centre-back, I think he's got potential, but he needs to play. That's the problem.
No, absolutely. I agree. I just think that, you know, I also think that sometimes as Manchester United fans that we need to be realistic because, you know, at the end of the day, as we are fans, we have high expectations for the club in terms of the level that need to be at. And as much as I want young players to succeed, they also have to be good enough at the end of the day. They have to be good enough to be able to dislodge. So, because if you're saying that you should have a chance, what you're saying is that Mengi should be able to dislodge Lisandro or Varane or Lindelof, potentially. You know, can Mengi do potentially? Potentially, but as it stands right now, he can't. He's nowhere near that, you know, so on a consistent basis. And that's the thing, you know, like young players want to come in, but they have to be able to dislodge the competition. It's all about competition at the end of the day. And right now, you know, hopefully touch wood, Maina will be okay. But, you know, Maina was someone, for example, I'm like, I see this is potentially someone who looks like they could dislodge the competition. Maybe come as a backup for Casemiro. Maybe be ahead of Ericsson, for example, in that deep role position. Certainly ahead of Donny van der Beek. So there you can really see, there's someone who could potentially dislodge the competition. But you know, I don't. But yeah, that's what I'll say on that. Like I said, get your questions in. We're getting quite a few questions in, so that's good. I really like it. We'll obviously talk about Højlund, but this is predominantly a Q&A a stream, which we'll hopefully be doing weekly. And it doesn't have to just be football related as well. It can be any question. It doesn't have to be about Manchester United. So this is an open Q&A session, you know. So ask whatever questions you want, provided that it's not like rude or insensitive. Let's have a look. So yeah, I'll say shower. I've not missed your question. I'm going to come back to your question in a second because we'll have a little update on that. Arsenal says, big up RDS. I'm slightly becoming skeptical of Erik ten Hag's TAN ID due to some signings like Mount. Mount hasn't been impressive at all so far. So I'll turn on to the question. So I guess do you think are you skeptical about Erik ten Hag's TAN ID? It's twofold. It's one, I think about the reality. Like we need to remember that Ten Hag wanted to get Frankie de Jong. He didn't get him. Ten Hag wanted to get Harry Kane as his first choice, didn't get him. So we do have to put things into context of he did want to get players that I think would have been a valuable asset to the squad and didn't get them. And also, we've still yet to see how the overall squad is going to work, how it's going to function. I'm still worried about the midfield because I think there's overbalance. But you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, Tom, what do you think?
I think that I could understand why people's questions are there regarding Ten Hag, but even in saying that, the players that he brought in last summer, I didn't hear a lot of people complaining about, and that's his players at the end of the day. Martinez was his player. I don't think anybody can put a bad foot about him. Anthony's still a young player who we know that there's a player there and the potential is there. He just needs time to adapt. You know, Casemiro, everybody know that they were a player. So, you know, there's ways that you can look at it and think his talent ID is questionable. Probably more so because of this window. But Onana, I think, is clear as day that he was the goalkeeper that he wanted. So he did get that. Mason Mount clearly was the midfielder that you wanted. And look, it's pre-season. That's the one thing that I would say. I don't expect Mason Mount to score 5 goals in pre-season. Listen, we've had players who've had amazing pre-seasons, and then when it gets to the actual main season, they do absolutely nothing. So hype around pre-season means nothing. For me, pre-seasons, you build fitness, you learn about your new teammates, and you build connections and partnerships. And you implement the manager's instructions and what he wants to do. That's what I see as pre-season. So in saying such as Mason Mount's not been impressive so far, yeah, he might not have been, but it's pre-season. If you get into, say, 5 games into the Premier League and we're still seeing the same result, then, yeah, there's maybe cause for concern because it's competitive games. But right now, listen, everybody's on holiday, let's be honest, they are. Not that people. What's the point in competing in a friendly when you've got nothing to compete for, other than just build fitness and build a partnership with players? That's it. So, I get the idea around with Eric Ten Hag's talent ID, but in saying that, if some of these signings pull off and hit off this season, Mason Mount, you get the player that you had at Chelsea, for example. Højlund, you know, if he is to come in, which is looking very likely that he will do. As a young player, I think that would save Manchester United £120 million on either Kane or Osimhen, if that would work. And Onana's obviously a brilliant goalkeeper for the value that we got him for is peanuts, really, in today's market. So I think it's a combination. I think it's Ten Hag's ideas, but I also think the club do value a lot of the players that he's targeting. Really, because I think if Ten Hag wasn't the manager, I think Mason Mount was a player that we would have looked at anyway as a club signing, because he can fit a lot of different managers, not just Ten Hag.
That's fair. Thanks for the question, Aspi. Like I said, guys, keep the questions coming in. This is a Q&A. It's not just about Manchester United. It could be anything football related, because we are going to touch on some other things outside, like Caicedo, Mane, and obviously the sale. But let me quickly come back to Short's question, because obviously this is there any truth behind about this sale development? Now, I assume what you mean is regarding the Glazers still being hesitant to sell type of thing, like I assume that's what you're referring to, Showkat Khan. You know, Tom, is there any kind of, I know it's grumbling on the cell phone, but is there any truth in what seems to be the fact that the Glazers are likely to sort of, well, I think it's something along the lines of they're likely to have some sort of future involvement in the club, something along the.
Well, like I say with the Glazer family, it depends on what gives them more money. And ultimately that's what it is. If they get more money right now to sell fully, then they'll probably sell right now fully. If they get more money potentially in the future with a partnership with somebody, or they build a new stadium with financing from a minority investor, then that's what they're going to do. Whatever gets them more money, they're going to do. Age isn't a bad thing for the Glazer family, really. I think they're pretty middle-aged men, about mid-50s, coming up to maybe early 60s, in and around that age. They've still got, you know, a decade or, you know, 2 decades, you know, left in them. 5 years to build a new stadium, 5 years to actually make profits out of it. You want to spend another decade as Manchester United owner, you probably can do, and you're probably still going to be alive, barring any health concerns or anything. So, like you said, there is a situation where they could sit there and flourish the work of their labour, but at the end of the day, it comes down to money. And in terms of the Glazers having an involvement, the one thing that I've always known from the very start was that if somebody hits the number that they want, they'll leave straight away. And that number has always consistently been portrayed as being £6 billion. And if somebody hits that number, they'll all sell. But unless you want to try and maybe get a better deal for yourself, you're going to have to really long it out. And the Glazer family are not quick decision makers, so it doesn't surprise me that they're taking as long as they are now. And the information that I've got anyway is that they're divided. And I know it's not great for Manchester United fans to hear, and I have really been like a record player, but it's the same news. They are divided. You have 4 siblings that want to sell, and you have Joel who's prepared to sell if the price is right, as I say, in agreement with the family. And then you have Avram who believes that the TV deals and the revenue that Manchester United can make in the next 5 years is more worthwhile for the family to stay involved in some capacity. But at the end of the day, there's going to have to be some agreement. And that's why I say you're not dealing with an individual, you're dealing with a family. You're dealing with 6 people, theoretically. So when you're trying to get a decision out of 6 people, it's going to take time. And that's not an excuse. That's just a fact. If it was just you, G, and you had to make a decision, you'd have probably made your mind up already what you want to do. Trying to make 6 people all agree to the same thing is hard. It's hard just doing it with 2 people to agree. So 6 people, it's difficult. But I think it proves now where Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim are that there isn't going to be any more movement. So what they've done is what they've done. I don't hear anything that Sheikh Jassim is going to make any further bids, and I don't hear the same thing that Ratcliffe's going to make any further bids. So it seems what they've put on the table is what's there, and that's it. So take it or leave it, as a lot of people have been using the phrase, that it looks like is what it is.
Fair enough. Thanks. Thanks for the update, Tom. Really appreciate it. Hopefully answer your question, Showcat. Let's have a look. So next question is by Dutchy. Shout out to Dutchy, who says, who do you think should be vice captain? Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. For me, I would. So I'll give top 3 in order of preference. So I think third, probably, and for me, I feel the best thing is about for me, a captain should be about longevity of the club is the first thing, and afterwards seniority and experience. I like the idea of giving the cap, like for example, you know, Mbappe being the captain of PSG. France, maybe I could give him that just because I mean that hat trick in the World Cup final.
Yeah, he's the poster boy. Yeah,
the poster boy. So I can kind of, but for club, nah. You know, so for me, she was someone like Thiago Silva, for example. You know, so well, not Thiago, because he's obviously at Chelsea. So, but someone of that ilk, as it were. So for me, I would say my top 3 would be, you have to go Varane, Casemiro, and then you could make a case for Rashford, because Rashford has been at the club for a while, and I think Rashford is now, especially because he's now committed himself to the club for how many years. Rashford, in my opinion, is now a senior United player. He's not like a kid, youth product or whatever. He's an established senior pro because he's been in the club for so long. So those would be the 3 based on seniority and experience. You know, so, and I think if I had to pick out of all of them, it would probably be Casemiro. What do you think, Tom?
For me, I agree with what you said around the actual longevity at the club, but we don't have players that's really been with us for a long time, really. I think the longest one, ever since probably the winning team in the Premier League for United, was David De Gea, and he's obviously left. So for me, I think it's more, I perceive a captain as having character. That's what I see. And I look at, say, what Arsenal did, where Aubameyang was really their poster boy, and as soon as he was pushed out of the way, there was calls that Thomas Partey should get it. He's a very leadership character. Saliba should get it, or Ramsdale, like somebody who's actually a character and a bit of a warrior on the field. And they ended up giving it to Martin Odegaard, who was a shock surprise at the time, but he led that team last season and they nearly won the league. So, as a vice captain, I mean, if I had to give preferences, my preference personally anyway, I would go Martinez, I think, should be vice captain straight away. I think Varane should be in the conversation. And I don't know, obviously, because of the language barrier, Casemiro, you would say, but language might be an issue with some of the English lads. But aside from that, like I say, there's quite a few that you can pick from now in terms of leaders and captains. Whereas before, really, there was only one, and that was Harry Maguire. So there is a couple of choices. But it just in saying that, I think Ten Hag has made the right decision with Bruno being the captain. Based upon, as you say, longevity, but also leadership qualities. And I think he's respected within the team.
No, that's fair. And like I said, and that almost ties into what RSV said about talent ID. It's like, it's very fascinating how, you know, under Oli, how many captains were there? How many leaders were there towards the end of Oli's reign? Not that much. Okay, yes, Ronaldo came in, but Ronaldo, Ronaldo for me has never been captain material. He's not a captain. Maybe for his country, but at a club level, not really. So, and then De Gea, and he said Maguire, and that's about it. Now you can name 5. Rashford, Casemiro, Varane, Lisandro. You know what I mean? So there's Bruno, obviously. So there's a lot. So that it shows the difference. Next question is again by Showcat, who says, "How about Shaw at centre back?" This is brief. Yeah, I think for me, Shaw makes a very good left-sided centre back. And to be honest, I would have much rather we played him at left centre back against City, like we did at Old Trafford, than not. But that's just my personal preference. But for me, he did quite well. In fact, there's a part of me that feels like, there's an argument that we should actually be going in for another left back. Obviously Malacia has got potential, but for me, last season, how good last season was Luke Shaw at left back, really? Like, he wasn't amazing, wasn't it? Like, Luke Shaw's had a good season last season because of what he did at centre back, not at left back. So there's a part of me that feels like, I'm not saying he still can't do a job, but there's a part of me that does think that, why don't we could easily have the best of both worlds and get a better left back, a better fullback, whilst also keeping Luke Shaw, at centre back, potentially, especially because I know for a fact that Varane is going to have injuries, so he's going to be out. We're going to be in 4 competitions. So as far as I'm concerned, Luke Shaw, if Lisandro, so long as Lisandro is fit, like, Luke Shaw is third choice as far as I'm concerned, and then Lindelof is 4th choice, although it can be 3rd choice depending on how it goes or how we're playing. I don't know. What would you think, Tom?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Shaw is I think, to be honest, if he didn't get Martinez and he didn't go with Timber, I think Shaw would have probably played left side centre back for him, if I'm honest. And I do agree with what you said. I think over time it depends really on what we do with certain players, because we are going to have to recruit a new centre back at some point, because Varane's not getting any younger. And injuries will catch up with him a lot more, I think, especially for this season, based upon the age. And we are going to play a lot of games if you want to go deep in the Champions League and stuff. So
indeed, yeah.
there is going to be a potential stumbling block there if it comes to it. So sure, on a centre-back partnership, even if you played him right-sided centre-back, which is unethical probably to do, I still do have some faith in him in that area if we need to. And I think over maybe a long-term plan, you could have a situation where Shaw can play left-sided centre-back in a certain game, and you might have Martinez play CDM, or you might have him, a bit more involved in the build-up from midfield. Because we know how a lot of modern-day managers use the inverted full-back, you could use an inverted centre-back there. And Martinez could potentially do maybe the Johnny Stones sort of role from last season that we saw with what Stones did for Manchester City. So I guess there is an idea and there's a thought there, but for me, if it's not Martinez and Varane, Shaw is there with Lindelof straight away. No questions asked.
Fair. Let's move on again. So So Varane doesn't have a good injury record, and if Maguire leaves, okay, fair enough. Højlund time. Well, I'm going to pin that. We're going to come back to Højlund, have a conversation about him. It's not been. We're still. I think it's close. We're waiting for here we go, but we'll come back to him and talk about Højlund in a second. Willie Williams says, "Is Harry Kane coming?" I can answer that. I personally answer and say no, not to United. If anything, is going to Bayern Munich. So, but transfer Tom is next to me. I'm assuming you can echo that sentiment.
Yeah, there is a feeling that with Harry Kane, well, Daniel Levy had a scheduled meeting supposedly for today with Bayern Munich, and he ended up rescheduling until next week. And that's an old-fashioned Daniel Levy tactic that is used for upwards of 10 years since he's been in control at Spurs, where he moves the goalpost so it shows that he has control of the negotiations. But I don't think Bayern Munich are really asked, to be honest with you. A couple of days isn't going to matter to them if they're prepared to pull it out and try and get the player.
And also, and I guess this comes under the Mane part, which we'll talk about as well. Is that now that Sadio Mane is going to Al Nassr, and I don't know what the fee is, but I suspect it's maybe it might be 20 million or something. I don't know, but let's say it is. Then I suspect now Bayern Munich will have more money, from the Sadio Mane deal, because I think they were offering 80 million plus add-ons for Kane, if I'm correct. So with the money from the Sadio Mane deal, okay, here's another 10 million pounds, for example.
Yeah.
That's potentially Harry Kane. So yeah.
It's not to be fair though to Bayern Munich. I mean, signing Kane for this sort of money it's out of the norm for them to do. They don't normally spend this much money on a player unless they're certain. Like they did for, say, Matthijs de Ligt, for example, or when you want to bring in certain players to fit a profile, or like Upamecano, for example, it suited them at the time to get him. He was the best centre-back in the Bundesliga at the time. It depends on when a player suits for them to go for them and if they want that player that badly or not. But for them, they've had majority of their success with a number 9. Because you look at the success that they had with Robert Lewandowski. So I think bringing in Kane does give them that balance, and it gives them the consistency that they are going to have a proven goal scorer in his own right. And at the end of the day, I think from Tottenham's perspective, it's a good investment if they get the sort of money that they want. But it also suits Bayern Munich because they get a goal scorer that's proven, and really, it puts them back in the race to go for the Champions League easily. And that's what I mean. You sign a player like Harry Kane, instantly you're it's not really a title challenge in their league when they're really the only ones that compete year in, year out.
Yeah, exactly.
But it puts them back in the conversation to go for the Champions League. Absolutely. They went to the Etihad toothless when they played Manchester City. That was my view of it anyway. And even when they went back to Munich, toothless again, they didn't have clinical goal scorers. So having someone like Harry Kane can make that difference in those games. We've seen it with City. You bring in a clinical goal scorer that can get you over the line in big games. Haaland blew the league up in itself and took them all the way to the final and won the Champions League. So Kane can have that impact, I think. But even in saying that, I think if he was to come to Manchester United, instantly title challenges. Instantly. If you had 30 goals to to a lot of teams at the top end of the table, you would consider that they should be title challengers.
No, I don't disagree, and it'll be interesting to see. Especially because of the rumors that potentially Kyle Walker's interested in going to Bayern. So it'll be interesting if Kane goes, and whether obviously another English teammate being there and Kyle Walker going with an interest and new challenge, that might also be one of the deals that happen to the back end, and then suddenly. Bayern Munich, have made Kim Min-jae, Kyle Walker, Harry Kane, and suddenly thinking, this Bayern team might actually be dangerous coming into the Champions League. So there you go. Next question. Matt says, what do you guys think of Højlund and Greenwood being our 2 main strikers next season? I think they are solid options. Okay, so let me address the second part of that just quickly, is that we still got no confirmation regarding what's happening to Mason Greenwood. And I think I'll echo what Ten Hag said, is that it's up to the club. It's up to the club. And the club still haven't made a decision, presumably because they're still busy with all this takeover stuff. So I can't really comment on Greenwood's involvement. I don't think both me and Tom can both comment on Greenwood's involvement, because as far as he's concerned, he's currently not training with the face. Like, he's not on tour. He's not training with the team. He's not involved in the squad as of yet. So I don't think there's any means way to comment, really. Now, as far as Højlund goes, obviously, okay, I guess we can mention this. It looks like United are probably going to seal this Højlund deal for around about 60 million euros, 65 million, maybe with add-ons, etc. So somewhere between just under £60 sterling if you're British here. So which I think is it's quite a lot for a striker that doesn't have a lot of experience as of yet. But if he works, then it's a solid investment and potentially an investment that you can make money on if he does indeed cook, which is possible. And also, you got to bear in mind that like right now anyway, we're in a striker crisis. There are not that many strikers available going round, etc. You know, so commands fees. So he's one for the future. If we just put aside Greenwood for a second, obviously I don't think we're going to be selling Martial. You know, we want Martial. Clearly, Ten Hag has shown that he can use Rashford in that position, and also as we saw in one or two games in preseason, even Sancho as a false number 9 seems to be an option. I don't like that option, but that is also an option as well. So yeah, a striker is interesting. Otherwise, I think that the first choice would be Højlund in the number 9 position, and then the second choice would probably be Rashford and or Martial. I mean, a very very fit and athletic Martial who doesn't get injuries would probably compete with Højlund. I don't doubt that, but we're not going to get that, unfortunately. So it is what it is. But you know, Tom, I don't know what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think to be fair, even if you want to bring Greenwood in the conversation, you're basically at the same end. You've got an unproven striker. Because, yeah, the Mason Greenwood of before isn't the Mason Greenwood of now. That's the difference. And in theory, even Mason Greenwood coming into this team, don't expect, if he was to come back, do not expect him to be the superstar, you know, future prospect that he was when he was consistently playing for Manchester United. He's going to need to take some time to get back up to speed. And I can't even remember the last time he played a professional game. I'd be shocked if it wasn't a year or 18 months ago. I'd be shocked. So I do look at that and I think there is a potential clash there. But even in saying that with Højlund, the sort of feeling is that United had put in a new offer, as it were. My understanding is that it's in and around 65 million euros initial payment, and then they are looking at potentially adding on the add-ons further onto that. So rounding it around about 85, 60 million pounds sterling, as you said, G, in and around about that sort of figure is the sort of package that Manchester United are looking at proposing. But they have conducted the business is verbal. They haven't put official contract on the table and said they're the terms of what we're signing. It's all verbal right now. So in terms of saying it with what it is, United they're not putting a contract on the table that they don't think is suffice enough. They'll put money on the table when they believe that the deal that they're getting is right. Not they're just going to propose a bit, write up a contract that they already know is going to be rejected. It wastes time. If you already know something's going to be rejected, just make it verbally and move on, which is what they're doing. And I think, especially to envy what Erik ten Hag's message was after anyway the Real Madrid game, where he was very vocal surrounding that it's clear that we need a number 9 and certain points around having a striker in the team and how that would have affected that game in particular with the chances that United created. As far as I'm aware anyway, Erik ten Hag has been very clear from the outset. Coming into this window, his main priority, or amongst all bases and any problems that he would have had having to sign a new goalkeeper, he wanted a number 9. That's the first player that he wanted on the tour, was a number 9 of some profile. Harry Kane was the target coming into this. They've realised that Daniel Levy is not going to be reasonable to negotiate with, and they didn't want a transfer saga. So they've gone for one of the players that the club and Erik ten Hag have both been watching and monitoring over the last 18 months, which is Rasmus Højlund. The only thing I say about this kid, and I know it's been a disrespect to him, is he's 20 years old and he's only got 24 professional goals. But statistically, every single game that he has played, he's nearly averaged a goal every game or every other game. And he doesn't normally, for Atalanta, he doesn't normally play full 90-minute games. So there is a question mark there. And also the quality of playing with Atalanta and Manchester United is different.
Of course.
So he would have a lot more clear-cut chances at Manchester United than he would at an Atalanta. And like I say, the feeling is that United will get this deal wrapped up probably towards the beginning of next week if they don't get an agreement in place over the weekend, because United are planning to work through the weekend. But if it does come to fruition that he does make the cut and they get a deal in place, it's very likely that he will probably stay at Carrington, do personal sessions with the coaches there, and then link back up with the team on the remaining games of the tour in Dublin or for the Old Trafford game potentially. But you know, there is a feeling that he will play some games on the tour, but he won't probably go to the US. I wouldn't go as far as that extreme. I think it's very late to try and put him on a plane and get every agreement in place for that to happen and for him to even make any minutes in the Dortmund game. So, like I said, there is a situation where he will probably miss out on majority of the tour, but I think like you say, it's a deal that Ten Hag clearly wants, and I think United now are in overdrive to get this deal done. And even after they get the Højlund deal done, from what I've heard from people close to the club, is this isn't over. Like, Man United are not done in the window. They do want more players. They want to bring in more quality. Amrabat's one of the players, yeah, but they're also targeting a centre back, as far as I'm aware. So if they can get the finances in place from sales, they want to push for a centre half. And especially after what we've seen today with Harry Maguire, £20 million bid rejected from West Ham, my understanding is United would want double that to sell Harry Maguire right now. They see him as an established England international. He carries value. That's what they see. You've just got £105 million off of Arsenal for Declan Rice, £70 million of which you have straight away now. So we know you've got the money. We want a big portion of that money if you're going to take one of our players. And same thing with Scott McTominay.
Yeah, it's like
£40 million.
Yeah, 40 million for both. To be honest, if we somehow get West Ham to spend 40 million on Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay, and we get 80 million from those sales, I don't want any United fan complaining. I don't want because 80 million and possibly 15 mil from Fred. It looks like Donny may actually be looking to leave. So potentially, if Donny, Fred, Maguire, and McTominay, we could potentially make 100 million from all those sales, not including obviously the sale, obviously Alanga already, who's gone for 50 mil, inevitably Dean Henderson, who'll probably go next season for 30 mil, and I think, I don't know how much did we sell Baye for? Was it 10 million? Was it less than 10 million? It was. I don't think it was more than 10 million.
We haven't sold Baye yet.
Have we not?
No. Are you meaning Tellez or?
Sorry, Tellez. Sorry, yes, yeah. Sorry,
I was going to say we're not sold Baye.
No, Baye is a work in progress. Sorry, Tellez.
Work in progress, yeah.
Tellez was. Tellez was.
I think it was around 10 million euros. I think it was.
Exactly. So those were lost. So yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's move on. Eric says he's having to settle players. Oh, this is regarding to Ten Hag. He doesn't really want. Our midfield is still imbalanced. Playing style of football won't work with these players, especially midfield. I mean, that's why I say we still need midfielders personally. So, but I'm getting hate on Twitter for saying that. If we get Højlund and Amrabat, is second place and a trophy realistic? Says D's. I think, and maybe it's because I'm not a pessimist, but I try to be a realist. I think top four, a comfortable top four, is realistic, and then maybe a good trophy run. In what, I don't know, but I mean, in fairness to United, we got to two finals. We got to the Carabao Cup final. We got to an FA Cup final in Ten Hag's first season. So Europa League, we won't deal with that, so, but severe attacks. I don't think that we'll obviously see who United place and who they're drawn against in the Champions League. I would like us to at least be close to being in a quote title challenge. But I think a lot of that will depend on City and how much they are rebuilding. Because if they're going to be in a fully rebuilding phase, then they might struggle a little bit. might being the operative word. Obviously Newcastle, I know you also got to think. I look at the midfield of some of these teams. I mean, you look at Newcastle's midfield with Bruno Guimaraes. They've got Tonali, and possibly you might throw in Harvey Barnes / whoever in there. Like, it's good.
Joelinton, yeah.
Joelinton, sorry. So Arsenal, chugging along. Liverpool basically are revamping their entire midfield now with McAllister and maybe potentially Lavia and obviously I've forgotten the other guy's name from Salzburg, was it?
Szoboszlai.
Yeah, exactly. So the point is just like every other team is also strengthening as well. But I do think that going into season, we look squad-wise in a better position than Chelsea or Spurs. So I think that we're consistent enough, and given the fact that with the signs, you hopefully think we should add quality to the squad. I think top four is. I think a comfortable top four finish is fair. That's what I think. That's my realistic expectation going on. If we exceed that, great. But that's my going forward. What do you think, Tom?
No, I'd probably agree with you in saying that. I think an uncontested top four is what I would say. You have even if it's third, like if you don't really have much competition, where you're sweating it towards like we were, for example, last season, where Liverpool had a couple of games and they were on that little bit of a winning run and we were on a bit of a purple patch, especially away from home. And it was really the home form and the home games that got us over the line at the end of the season, really, to get us the top four. I mean, providing if we get, for example, to a situation where 5 games to the end of the season, top four is wrapped up or is comfortable, I don't know, you're 9 points clear of the competition, like something like that. I can live with, and I think it is a success and a trophy. I mean, the Carabao Cup, I don't really think Carabao Cup we should aim for. I think if we're going to aim for something, I want to aim for the FA Cup. That's just me, though. I think there's more pride in winning the FA Cup than there is the Carabao Cup for me in terms of a legacy cup, because I see that as the main domestic cup that you can win when you play in the Premier League anyway. And a decent run in the Champions League, I think's quarterfinal sort of stage, based upon the quality of European sides in comparison to us. I mean, it's night and day. The only strength that I think we have is I think we have a really solid defence. That's the only strength that I think we have. And we have an okay midfield. We've got some good... I think we've got good individuals, but we're still not a team yet. That's why I think in the Champions League, I think we'd struggle. And I think we'd come unstuck against a big European team. Yeah. But in a one-off game, like I say, like a cup, one game, FA Cup, each round, so on and so forth, you could end up back at Wembley and playing in the FA Cup final, which for me I think's fine. But again, Ten Hag wants to fight for everything, so he's a madman. He'll play his first team in every single game. So these players, as I say, even if you come to United as a squad player, you're going to get at least, I would say, 10, 15 games, appearances, whatever. You're going to play games. Because Ten Hag is that, ambitious as a manager, and he's ruthless in the fact of that there's no rest for the wicked. If you want to win trophies, you're going to play every single game. And I like a manager who's like that in terms of we want to win every game and we want to be in every competition. And so you should at Manchester United. You want to be deep in every competition, if not win every competition. So I think it's a good mentality from the manager. So I think comfortable top four, and bag maybe the FA Cup, something like that. I think would be good for us.
Fair enough. So questions. Our defenders are also not quick enough to sprint back, and we turn the ball over a lot. I mean, I agree with you, Eric. I mean, to be honest, I've always said Eric Bailly was our quickest defender. Like, the quickest defender I've seen in Manchester United was in recent time was Eric Bailly. Especially, I remember one game where, like, the man just sprinted back and then did like a ridiculous challenge. If that guy was fit, I would be 100% happy with him, but he just can't keep fit, unfortunately. Did you know Eriksen was a scout before he came into management? Shows to me he's a good eye for fair plays. Fair enough. Friendlies are about embedding players in fitness. Exactly. Yeah. Just coming on to the other question. So any news on Manu injuries? So the only thing I've got, obviously, the club is still waiting, but Manu has posted on Instagram saying, I'll be back. I'll be back eventually. It's a blow, but I'll be back. Is that to paraphrase it? Which I don't know. Like, it's sort of somewhat cryptic. I feel like it could potentially be worse than it is, but at least it's being done now. But at least it's happening now at the beginning of the season, I guess. But I just hope that it's weeks and not months. If it's months, then I don't know I don't know whether he'll be able to come back into this team. Will be going to be very, very difficult for him to come back into his team. If it's weeks, we've still got 2 weeks to go. The first couple, and we need to do a video looking at the fixtures. The first fixtures for United aren't that bad. We can maybe just sort of bed him in, put him on the bench, etc. Alternate maybe with a few players, Casper Eriksen, etc., and bed him back in. But months will make it quite difficult. So at least that's from what I see. Let's quickly move on. So we've got these are the captain things. So Shah Khan top threes, I think Bruno, Casemiro, then Varane. Dutchy is Casemiro, Rashford, and Varane. Mawada is Leacher will be our next captain. Fair enough. The reason the takeover was taking so long is because of Radcliffe getting option to stay. If both offers were sold, it would be done by now. I don't disagree with that. Although I don't know the Glazers, I still think a lot of them are still like, I think from the beginning they always wanted involvement. Remember, as Thomas said, their preference was for a partial sale, partial investment, and that's always been their preference. I think yes. They obviously, of course, if someone offered United them £100 billion, of course they're going to leave the club. So of course there is going to be a financial point where, like, no one says no to that amount of money, but is Manchester United worth that amount? Will someone pay it? A captain should be able to rally the team on the pitch. Someone consistent. Rashi isn't that. Okay, interesting. So a lot of people saying Rashi's not captain material. Most of these on team have only been here for a season or two max. But for me, it doesn't matter. If you're a leader, it doesn't matter how long. For me, the only thing that longevity has at the club is just being familiar with the organization and how things are. But I don't necessarily think the longer you stay at United, the more of a leader you are. Leadership is a personality trait, it's a character trait, in my personal opinion. And like I said, for me, Ronaldo was not a captain. Never been a captain. Aside from for his country, because I see how passionate he is for his country and what he does. But at a club level, no, because he wants to break records. He wants to score. He's very, very individualistic. And you can't have that in a captain, because a captain has to see the bigger picture, Having a forward as your captain is tricky because they often get marked out of games. Exactly. That's what midfielders is better. Andrew, again, can't comment on that, buddy. Can't comment on that. It's still ongoing. A question for Tom, actually. So Shaka says, Tom, how do you rate Højlund and how would he benefit Anthony and Rashford?
I think I think they probably benefit based upon that. Well, you can't really say it about Rashford, maybe, but especially Anthony, I think, based upon the age profile, and I still think that they're both potential players. They haven't really lived up to the hype just yet. With Rashford, we've seen good hit and miss seasons, and especially for last season, 30 goals. I mean, it was a brilliant season for him. You have to admit in saying that. One of the better ones that we've seen since he broke through in a United shirt nearly 8 years ago. So I think Højlund's a good player based upon that. I think he's going to complement a lot more players.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Keep on speaking.
I think he's going to complement a lot of the players in our team a lot better than maybe some people would think. I think a partnership like I say, when you're at Atalanta, you're not going to have as many created chances for you, especially not clear-cut ones that creative players at Man United can do. And I think the invention that we've had with Bruno Fernandes and the sort of chances that he creates, I think he's one of the most creative players in the Premier League. None behind maybe a De Bruyne. I think he's very on par maybe with Odegaard with the amount of chances that they actually create for players. And having that number 9 to aim for in the box, if Højlund's going to be that 18-yard box number 9 that I think we've been lacking, is a good thing. But one good trait I like about Højlund more so than most, and I know people go for P&P straight away, pace and power, and that's a brilliant attribute, but I think he's got a deft touch. I really do, especially in the 18-yard box. The sort of movement, the runs, and then the positions that he actually takes up in the 18-yard box to receive the ball, as well as it, I think a quality asset for us to have based upon that. But also, I think, as you said, as you know, you put in the question to me, Showcat, I think when to benefit Anthony's game, I think Anthony needs a number 9 that he can first of all cross the ball in the box to. I don't necessarily think Rashford's a brilliant, solution to number 9. Sancho, you're not going to be putting the box, ball in the box many times in terms of crossing. So I think players can build an understanding based upon they have a number 9 that's actually going to be here for a long time. Whereas before, Cavani was only going to be here short term. Ronaldo we knew was going to be short term. Ibrahimovic was going to be short term. Now you actually have somebody you can build something with for a couple of years. And the reason why I use that phrase, that word build, is it took years for Firmino, Mane, and Salah to build that trio partnership that they had. And that was I would say, for me, I think that's the best front three that I've seen in the Premier League for a long time as a trio. I don't think there's been one that can top that in most recent time anyway, apart from if you want to go back years. But that's just the only reason why I say amongst that. And I think, as I said before, you can go off his stats. If you want to say it like that, you can go for stats and say he's 20 years old and he's got 24 professional goals. Like, wow, whoop-de-doo. But the one thing that you can say about it is stats don't always prove a player. You can be a team player and be one of the best players on the field, even if you don't score or assist in the game. The only thing that I think is maybe a criticism of his game is I do think he needs to improve certain areas. For example, if he wants to be a number 9, I've not seen him score many headed goals. I could be wrong. I've not seen him score many headed goals. And I think, especially going up against opposition, like people always use the phrase, can he do it on a wet, rainy night in Stoke? I think he's got the physique and he's got the physicality to do it. And I think for 20 years old, the actual athleticism that he has for a 20-year-old, I think is a very good ceiling to have. And as much as it pains me to say it, when we played Real Madrid, that midfield, the actual athleticism in that midfield was scary. It was absolutely scary. The sort of athletic physique that some of those players have, and at such a young age, Bellingham, Tchouaméni, Camavinga, even Modric and Kroos, physically, those players are fine-tuned even at 33, 37 years old. Fine-tuned players, even at the peak of their powers. And that's why I think, as an athlete, I like Højlund. But also, I think he can complement other players based upon he's going to be here a while, so you can build something with him. Whereas you have a Cavani, Ibrahimovic, where it's a short-term solution. So for me, I like the idea based upon that he has the potential for a big ceiling. And I know it's not nice in saying it because it does scare people if they don't turn out to be the player that you think, but I actually like that we don't know much about him. I always like it when you bring in a player like that because it can surprise you, but it can also prove a lot of people right. And I think he's too good of a young player not to at least show some promise in the first season. And then I think after he has an embedded season, kick on from there.
Fair. Thanks, Tom. Dees Park says Dees Parks ultimately, Tom's back 2 minutes. I'll keep on to them. Alvaro is our future left back. But Alvaro can't defend though. But we'll see. Sky report that next week we'll have a news about takeover Glazers likely outcome. I would take Sky News with a pinch of salt. I would. They've been very slow to everything. And if it's the same report I saw, it was more that it's most likely that they're going to have some sort of direct involvement. but that was in the context of for the coming season, which I guess makes sense considering that they've not agreed to anything really. But yeah, I would hold up with that. Would you take 60 million for McTominay and Maguire? Tom has got money back, so I'll answer the questions while he gets. Okay. Would I take 60 million from McTominay and Maguire? Yes. Yes, I would. If it meant if the money is getting invested in players in the summer, if that means that we get a midfielder to be honest, I feel like if we get 60 million for those, why can't we use that 60 million to go and get Caicedo? You know, why not? Why not? You know, Chelsea is stuttering. Ideally, so see for me, ideally, you get 40 mil for both, and then you take that 80 mil, and then you go and get Caicedo. That's what you do. Forget about this Amrabat stuff. Go and get Caicedo, and then suddenly, when you're telling me that you've got a midfield of Casemiro, Caicedo, you know, and then Bruno there, things might pop off, you know. So, but we'll see what happens, or you know, Mainu, etc. So I don't know, but minimum 60. And then anything above that, 70 million, you know, 80 million, which I think is what United want, that's fine. But less than 60, okay, you're now starting to take the piss a bit. Because, you know, Scott McTominay, whatever you say about Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire, they are regular internationals for their country. They are. And, you know, the reality is that I still believe that if McTominay and Maguire play in their preferred systems, they can be good. Maguire can be good if he's like he is for England in a back three with defensive cover, and McTominay I think is much better when he plays further forward. So if that stuff happens, then those guys will ball. It's just right now United, in my opinion, aren't using those players to maximize their attributes. Rashford is excellent in the pressing when he wants to. If Glazers stay, games be called off. What do you think fans will be mad? I think that's a question, as Scott. But yeah, I mean, I don't think me and Tom have to answer that. But yeah, fans will be mad if the Glazers stay, definitely. Also, Tom, what's that? The background is quite noisy.
All right, hang on.
That's it. Sheik Ariane says, "Big up Red Devil Studio and everyone. Is the story about the Glazers wanting 8 billion true?" I'll ask Tom that when he comes back. One was from the questions. Should have bought Sané.
How's that now, G?
That's a little bit better, yeah. It's a little bit better, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sheikh Hamzin says, "It's a story about the Glazers wanting 8 billion true, or is this a currency thing?" I have a feeling this is a currency thing. The 8 billion thing is that it's more like, oh, I don't know. It wouldn't. Yeah. What do you think about that, Tom?
Well, if it's based upon, I've not actually seen this story or rumours, so I can't really comment based upon that. But if it's £8 billion, it's complete misreporting. Every single person has it's been very clear. I think from the outset has been the benchmark had always been 7, but the realistic number that they thought that they would get from bidders would have been 6. So they, as I say, they landed upon £6 billion. But if the report refers to it as dollars, I think £6 billion off of today's currency comes out at around about $7.5 billion, if I'm not mistaken. But it's still not the $8 billion in theory. But I do think, as you know, people have been reporting it, just throwing numbers around and certain things like that. An NDA agreement, as I've always alluded to and I've always said, is in place based upon that numbers is one of the terms of the NDA agreement that you can never disclose. Elsewise, Ratcliffe's done about 3-4 interviews now. He's done one with the BBC. He's done one with, I think it was Get French Football. Get French Football. I think he did one with The Sun and I can't remember if it was the Times or the Telegraph. One of the two. He's done little snippets with them, and if he could have said the number that he's been bidding at, he probably would have done. But based upon the NDA agreements, he can't. Therefore, don't disclose the number. It's as simple as that. So if it's £8 billion, nowhere, it's complete misreporting. But if it is $8 billion, then really they're probably similar to the point as to where the currency should be. If you want to use the US currency, which when the bidders have been bidding for Manchester United, dollars is what's been the currency that they've been bidding in, not pounds. So it could be a little bit a case of they've misreported or misrepresented what they've said. Whoever has said it, that is, anyway.
Correct. We're gonna try and get to all your questions in the chat. We'll probably go on for another 10-15 minutes and round things up because it's into tomorrow morning, Saturday morning at midnight, and I need to sleep. So I am tired. I'm too old, guys. I'm too late. It's very difficult for me to go past midnight now without wanting to go to bed. So yeah. So let's have a quick just some of the comments. Yes. Sheik says 70 million euros is way too much for Højlund. Fair, but I mean it depends on what Atlanta wants. No way we get 80 mil, as even with regards to McTominay and Maguire, unless Wood was at West Ham now. Well, I mean, to be fair, I think that McTominay English tax, you could probably still get. McTominay is the one that you could probably get closer to 40 mil for, in my opinion. Whatever you say about McTominay, and also it's a proposition that maybe West Ham need to strengthen. Maguire is the one that's going to be harder, I think. But that's because of his PR, I guess. If we can get 100 million from sales, would you blow it all on Kane? If it meant we got, I think we need 2 strikers. If it means that we get Kane and Højlund, then yes. Yes, I would. But it looks like he's going to Bayern. And I think that Mane will, the sale of Mane now will fuel that. So I wouldn't be surprised if next week, while we're still differing with Højlund and Amrabat midfields and all the rest of it, that you get a here we go to Bayern for Kane. Because I think that Mane transfer was the last piece. But I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
Sorry, what was the question? Sorry.
So if we can get 100 mil from sales, would you blow it all on Kane?
I don't think 100 million would do it. No, I'm being honest. I don't think it would. I think Daniel Levy, he'd want 120, 130. If it's a British club, that's what I think. It's, as far as I'm aware, it's always been 100 plus for a British club, but it could be, say, 100 million euros for a European club. So long as Harry Kane's not competed against Spurs week in, week out in terms of Champions League qualification, Daniel Levy's absolutely fine with selling to whoever. And hence, when there's been rumours about Real Madrid, when there was rumours around PSG, and when it's come to fruition that Bayern have been making bids and they want to discuss it in person with Daniel Levy, Daniel Levy's more inclined to speak to them than he would be anybody else. And I mean, even the most cash-free spenders that you can have and strict negotiators at Manchester City, they couldn't even land the Harry Kane deal. That's how hard it is. So if it was to be for United, I'd be very shocked. But I think £100 million can be better invested into the squad. And that's why I say squad. I think the squad's more important than buying one individual in Harry Kane, who's just a goal scorer. So I don't think I don't think you just bring in Harry Kane right now and you win the league. I think you challenge for it. I don't think you win it. I think you do need more than just Harry Kane. But I think you can do a lot more with £100 million. I think you can really, in today's market, I think you can buy 2 or 3 quality players for the sake of one world-class player in Harry Kane. And I think having 2 or 3 quality players is better than just having that one world-class player. That's just for me, though. But I'd take Kane in a heartbeat.
You and me both. Famu Corner says, good evening, everyone. Shout out to Famu who's watching on Facebook, man. Really, really appreciate it. And shout out to all the Facebook gang. Those of you that watch me on Facebook, thank you so much, or who'll be watching. Mo Wada says, you think a bad start to next season would put Erik ten Hag's position under pressure? It depends how bad we're talking about here. How bad? If you're talking about like he loses the first 10 games, then absolutely.
If you're talking Frank de Boer sort of form at Palace, like 5 games, 5 losses, no goals, then
no goals, then yes, he's going to be under pressure. Will be under pressure. Any manager, even Pep, would be under pressure. As much as what he's achieved, you know, if you're not scoring goals and you're 10 games and you lost all of them, then people will start to look at you a bit funny. So, yeah, it depends on the nature of the losses, I think. But, you know, I don't think, especially given United's trajectory, where usually in the second season of managers, we actually tend to do better. Ollie, Mourinho, Van Gaal, you know, so we always tend to do better in a second season because the manager feels like he gets some backing, the players that he wants. There's some reinvigoration into the squad, as you see, and there's a difference. There's a positivity, there's an energy, rather than a kind of like a new manager's in, we've got to learn here. Now it's like, okay, we're now used to what he's going to do. We've got new players in, let's go. So I think that I'm much more optimistic about our start to the season this time, especially in the fixtures. But you're right, it could be bad, and that's why I think preseason is important. But I will also double down that and say, one of the reasons why we had issues at the beginning of last season is because Ten Hag wasn't sure of his starting 11, and defensively we're all over the place. He gave Maguire the first 3 or 4 games, and then he dropped him. And it's no coincidence that in those games, he played against Brighton, he played against Brentford, and so on. So that's what I think anyway. So, but and would you say something similar, Tom?
Yeah. I think if he doesn't hit the ground running straight away with the team, I think when you look at it, I think from the end of this window, really, he would have spent over £300 million in 2 windows. You need to see something. You need to see progression. If you're going to spend £300 million at any club, irrespective of Manchester United commercially and how big they are and how much money that they can generate, you're spending that much money and you need to show some promise. Like, I don't want to see what we saw last season. 2 games in, we got slapped up at home by Brighton and we went away to Brentford and it was a disaster class. And then the Liverpool game, we sort of turned it round, and then we went to City and we got slapped up 4-0 down at half time. I don't want to see those sort of disaster classes. I want to see from the first game of the season a consistent winning pattern, or I want to see standout performances. And I don't just mean individuals; I mean the whole team. That's what I want to see, and that's where from the Wolves game to 5-6 games in. Then if anyone's agendas or, opinions on maybe the new signings and bringing them in, you can have a fair opinion. If you don't think Mason Mount after 5-6 games deserves to be playing week in, week out, that's fine. Eric Ten Hag, if he believes the same thing as you, he'll probably bring in Amrabat if he has that player, or he'll bring in, McTominay if he's still here, or Donny van de Beek if he's still here. So I think Ten Hag really, as he's shown, isn't how can I say? He's a dictator. He is, and if you don't do his demands and do it to a high level, he'll replace you irrespective of legacy at the football club or legacy in world football. He's proved that with Ronaldo and David De Gea. So the manager doesn't have any sort of biasness towards the football club, and I think having no bias towards the club is a good thing, based upon that he can be as ruthless as he is. And a lot of United fans, I think, have waited for a manager to come to this club and rip up the rule book. And, he's going to hurt people along the way by, getting rid of your best, your favourite players. But if you want to progress and you want to win things, you need something new, unfortunately. And I look at it from the perspective of Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United, who was never going to win the Premier League title. You need a youthful number 9 to take you forward. Cristiano Ronaldo was never going to be that. In the same way that David De Gea, I don't think was ever going to win a Premier League title again at Manchester United. That's just my personal opinion. I think he would have been a good goalkeeper. He might have won the Golden Glove every couple of years and so forth, and the odd FA Cup. But, when a manager loses faith in you, that's it. I think as soon as Ten Hag, as a manager anyway, I think as soon as he loses faith in you, I don't think you can get it back. I'll be honest. I think he's one of those managers, when his mind's made up, it's made up. And he doesn't change. And I think the Ronaldo saga proved that. I think the David De Gea mistakes in certain games, Sevilla, West Ham, and then the final, FA Cup final, I think proved that. And love it or hate it, if he gets to a situation where he doesn't believe a player's cutting their weight, it might even be a player that we all love. If he doesn't believe Martinez in training's been up to scratch, he'll put Luke Shaw left-sided centre-back, no problem. We was literally relying on Marcus Rashford in away games where we were winning 1-0. He went up to Wolves, and as soon as Marcus Rashford was late for training, and he broke with the principles and the rules of the club that he had set as the manager, right, you're on the bench.
Yeah. But
he was the only player that was scoring for Manchester United. So at the end of the day, I think with Ten Hag, I think if he gets to a bad start, there's going to be question marks. Obviously, yes. But I just want to see. I want to see what his team take shape. That's what I want. I want to see what he actually wants to do with this team. Not transition, counter-attacking football. That's a tactic, not a play style. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the blueprint that you could have known that. Counter-attacking and transition football is not sustainable. It's a tactic that you can use, but you need to have an element of control or discipline within the team. And we need to see one or the other.
Fair enough, Chief. Fair enough. That's so many questions. So Dutch, I think, has got an interesting one. Rank our opponents in terms of best transfer window and which signing will be a hit miss from our opponents. That's interesting. So for sake of time, so that could be a show in of itself. We'll only focus on, like I said, I guess you could say the top 6. So City, Arsenal, Liverpool, the traditional top 6, sorry. So City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. That's the 4. Us obviously 5. And then, say Spurs. Let's say Spurs. I won't put in Newcastle just yet. Actually, we'll talk about Newcastle. We still got a bit of time. So I think, and obviously you can chip in if you want, Tom. I think. So if I had to rank, so I go from top. I'll go from bottom to top right now. So bottom is Spurs. They're about to potentially lose the player that's basically keeping them relevant and safe. Their new manager's got a lot of work to do. I don't think they've made, aside from the goalkeeper and I've forgotten the other guy. What was the other guy's first sign they made? I'm trying to remember. They made a new goalkeeper and was the midfielder? I can't remember. But essentially what I'm saying is that if Kane leaves Spurs have made a loss. Spurs have made a loss. So I think that if you're looking at transfers and what right now, I think Spurs are definitely at the bottom. I think that then you probably will have to just put it's difficult. Who have City really signed? I know they don't need to, but who have they really? I mean, Guardiola kind of is not official yet. Remind me, Tom, who have City officially signed?
I could be wrong. I don't actually think they've signed anybody, have they not? I think they've lost a lot of players in comparison. Mahrez has gone, for example. You've had it with Kyle Walker might be leaving. Laporte, Kovacic. Sorry, that's one player. Yeah. But he's not going to be a first teamer. He's probably a squad player. And they've lost Gundogan as well. So they've lost a lot more players than they've actually replaced.
They'll obviously be fine. I'm not saying they're not going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, they've got two squads. They've got 2 squads, so they're fine.
But in terms of the question, I don't think that. They signed Kovacic, but I think that. So maybe put them there. To be honest, so Spurs. Then this is from worst to greatest. Then I think maybe you probably put Chelsea.
They've had a quiet window.
I think, they've had, yes, they did sign. They've signed Nicholas Jackson, I guess, and Cuckoo technically comes in, etc. But, the worry again is, the defense, I think they're still quite shaky. especially now that what's his name, Fofana's got that injury, which is potentially a season-ending injury. Badiashile is injured, so they're short in defense, they're short in midfield. They've not signed Caicedo yet, so I think Chelsea are probably next. Then I would probably go. I think I'd go Liverpool before Arsenal because Liverpool haven't signed Lavia yet. So as it stands now, Liverpool with their signings, and then Arsenal. I think Arsenal right now, even though looking pre-season, they're like, they're not looking. They're looking okay, but not world class. At the end of the day, I think they still made signings that should at least strengthen their squad. Not necessarily this is going to be their new go-to guy, but unlike last season where they really missed, I can't remember what was it, Gabriel, whoever that was injured, or Saliba or something that was injured. Now they're correcting that. They've signed in Timber, they brought him in. They've obviously brought in Havertz, who gives them more depth. They brought in Declan Rice, who will do a job. So yeah, I think so far for me, Arsenal have had the best window, and Spurs, ironically enough, have had the worst. And in that, to your second question, because this is two questions, and which signing will be a hit or miss from our opponents. So I'll start with Arsenal again. The Arsenal one is obvious, Kai Havertz. He could easily be a bust because he's so inconsistent. City have only just signed Kovacic, so you can only just say him, obviously. Spurs, their new goalkeeper. Liverpool, Sabit. I don't know. He's not called
Sabozla.
Sabozla, yeah, could be just obviously coming from the Bundesliga. Would it be able to adapt? And then Chelsea, I think it could be a flop.
I'm not buying the Jackson hype with Chelsea.
Yeah, Jackson, maybe Jackson.
I'm not buying this. Listen, pre-season's pre-season, but like, who have they actually faced on that tour? Brighton. I don't recall them.
They were down to 10 men as well. I looked at it, I was like, we dominated Brighton. I was like, Brighton were down to 10 men for like 60 minutes of the game, and you still lost 4-3. Can you explain that, please?
I think he's a good player, Jackson, but they are overhyping him slightly. And I'd be saying the same thing if Højlund was at Manchester United and ripping it up in pre-season. I'd be saying the same thing. Like, it's pre-season.
Relax.
As soon as you get to a competitive game and a player sticks it on him or they start kicking out at him in the Premier League, that's where you're going to have to see if he can handle it or not.
Yeah.
And if he can, brilliant. Then I think Chelsea have got a good player on their hands. But if he doesn't adapt as quickly as it takes, love it or hate it, he's a project player in the same way that others are. And I mean, even as you've said, with sort of the window as it stands now, Arsenal have had the best window by far. For me, I think, anyway, in the Premier League. I think I would take Timber in a heartbeat. I'd take Rice in a heartbeat. Havertz,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm not so sure, but listen, it's a player that Mikel Arteta clearly sees that he thinks he can do something with. So we're going to have to see on that part. I think it's difficult because I don't think a lot of clubs have made marquee sort of signings.
To be honest, Declan Rice is probably, in terms of
Declan Rice is the only one that's really like eye-catching, and it's not just because of the price tag, but the player as well. Yeah. McAllister's he's a good player, but we need to see a more experienced and higher level. Sabozlai, I know absolutely. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about, so I'm not going to comment on that. Lavia had a decent season with Southampton last season. So Liverpool, you can say, if they get that deal over the line, might be having a decent window. But I mean, in terms of bringing players in, there isn't really a lot. And I think maybe maybe if Chelsea get the CAICEDO deal over the line, you can say they've had a decent window, but not a lot of clubs are moving as mad as they have been in recent years anyway, especially for buying players. But I don't know if that's because of what's happening with Saudi Arabia and players are getting enticed over there or not. You don't know, but it is difficult to say.
Engine in FFP now. I feel like with FFP now, it's gone to town now and it's made things.
I think what you said about Spurs. I think Spurs have had an okay window. I would put them in. I'd put them in the middle category. They haven't signed top players, but James Maddison, I think a lot of people would have took at Man United. If I'm being honest,
right? That was James Maddison.
I think a lot of people would have taken him maybe over Mason Mount. If we're being fair, I liked Solomon at Fulham last season. I did like. I think Spurs as a free transfer. I don't think he's a bad signing really. The goalkeeper, I don't really know much about, but they're on a rebuild, so those sort of players are what I would expect Spurs to be going for. But hit or misses. I'm going to say something controversial. I think Kovacic will be a good player for City. I think he'll be a good player when he plays for them.
I agree.
I think he's better than what they've got in terms of Calvin Phillips and stuff.
I was legit surprised Chelsea let him go.
I thought I thought as well with saying that Loftus-Cheek, like players like that, I thought were furniture players. I thought they were decent squad players to have if you were going to add quality in and around them. But Chelsea have sold so many players and they've sold so many midfielders. Like they need to recoup some more. That's the problem with them. And even in saying that, they went for Ugarte. They didn't get him. They might not get CAICEDO in the end unless they want to stump up the money and get him. And suddenly in a situation where I can't really think of it other than maybe Nkunku, Enzo, Gallagher, that's their midfield really. And as much as people say, "Oh, they're going to cook," and I used the metaphor before, you can't cook if you don't have oil.
Yeah,
they don't really have those furniture players, and that's why I say they don't have a Casemiro, Rice, Partey kind of player. They don't have that player. They don't have N'Golo Kante anymore, so that's not a fallback on the sword too. CAICEDO, I think, is the next Kante, in my opinion, anyway, based upon the similar attributes and quality. But, I mean, stranger things have happened. But for me, I think hit and misses. I don't know about Havertz, man. I think I just don't think the Premier League's for him. I'll be honest. I don't think the Premier League is for him. I think if he went back to the Bundesliga, he'd probably rack up similar numbers. Timo Werner, since he's gone back to the Bundesliga, has done pretty decent, if we're being fair and honest. Exactly. And he came to the Premier League and he didn't do anything. So I think maybe Mikel Arteta can do something with him, but it's a long shot for me. And other misses, I mean, it's hard to judge people based on what you've only seen for pre-season, but that's why I say with Jackson, I wouldn't buy into the hype just yet. Listen, let the kid settle in and play consistently week in, week out in the Premier League, and let's see how he does then. Otherwise, he might just be another David Fofana, where he's a potential project player. That's all he is. So there's a situation, there's a problem there, I think, for some players. But I think from what I've seen anyway with us so far, I think Mason Mount, I think he will adapt well to the team. I think he's going to take time, though. And I think Onana straight away will hit the ground running from day one. So I think from what we've had a good window so far. But obviously we need to get in a number 9 and we need probably another midfielder for me. I think 4 players, I think that's a good window. 2 midfielders, a striker and a goalkeeper. I think a lot of people would have taken that coming into the window.
Fair. Right. Let's get around to some of the questions and we'll round up. Anthony is one person only has one trick in his locker, coming inside and trying to bend it top bins, which comes off very bad and is costing us terrible. Well, it was his first season. Hopefully he'll learn. That's the hope. Hopefully he'll learn. Do you think they will not sell because they think they can take the fans on? I think if they're not going to sell, it's because they don't care about the fans. That's what I would say. Kane cannot press though. Oh, big up Stephanie in the chat. Stephanie, 23 likes. Hope you're doing well, Stephanie. Thank you. And yeah, big up RDS and Turbo Transfer Tim. Sorry, Tom. What did I say? Where did Tim come from? Where did Tim come from? It's because I'm tired. That's why. So, but yeah, thanks for giving the chat. Stephanie, really appreciate it. Casemiro got one more good season in him, 2 max. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Although to be fair, Matic, when did wasn't Matic like 35, 36 when like he left us? I'm sure he was in his like mid to late 30s when he left us and playing in that CDM role. So, and at times in the season, he was actually a better player. So if Casemiro can do that, because I think Casemiro is only 30, 31, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom.
Sorry, what, G? Sorry, what?
No, just how old is Casemiro? Is he 30, 31?
I could be right. I think he's 31. I think he's had his birthday. I'll just double check.
Yeah, it's 31 in February.
31, yes,
yeah. So for me,
like his birthday, yeah.
For me, you know, given the fact that we're using Matic at like 34, 35, 36, potentially you could get like, I mean, and you look at players like Benzema. I mean, what was Benzema doing at? Well, to be honest, for some reason, it's obviously 35 for me is the age when peak players go downhill, definitively, with the exception of some defenders. But most midfielders and attackers, they've done on 35 because when you saw 34 to 36, Benzema and Ronaldo, when what they were doing, it was like, whoa, these guys can go on forever. And then he hit like 35, 36, and then they just drop. So I personally think that Casemiro, especially with the genetics, potentially can get maybe 2, maybe even 3 good seasons out of him till he turns 34, maybe. But we'll see. AD says, "Are you surprised in the Women's World Cup? Something non-Manchester United related." Well, I mean, the previous question was not to me. Yeah, the Super Falcons. I was really, really happy with the result against HOJLUND. I think it was basically the biggest upset of the tournament, because the main reason being that Australia and New Zealand are the ones that are hosting the competition. And this result obviously means that Australia have got to get a result against Canada, which is going to be very, very difficult. But you know, the way that we played, I was happy with it. I mean, defensive could be a bit better still, but that's the same with the men's as well. But yeah, I think that if they can top the group, then we can probably get a good run. Basically, all I want is I just want someone to win it that isn't the US. If someone can win that's not the US, even whether that's England or another team, that'd be great. I just don't want the USA to win the World Cup again. Like I just don't. We need someone else, and we just need more. We need more diversity in that sort of. But yeah, big up the Super Falcons, man. Big up the Super Falcons. I'm watching. If we get Højlund and or Kane, if we get Højlund and or Kane, Rashi will have to stay on the left side and must perform. Otherwise, his position will be under threat from Garnacho and Sancho. Thoughts? That is a good question. That's a good question. Yeah, because if Ten Hag persists on playing Højlund as the number 9, then Rashford has to play on the left. And then if Rashford plays on the left, well, you know, who plays on the right? And it looks like Ten Hag wants to try and get Bruno into the team. Again, it's an interesting one because you think, okay, if Højlund will have to come in, so who plays on the left? Okay, it's going to be Rashford. And who plays on the right? Okay, is it Sancho? Is it maybe Anthony? Okay, Anthony comes in. Okay, then is the midfield then Bruno, Mount, and Casemiro? Because for me, that can't work. That midfield is too unbalanced and too attacking and will get overrun. We can't play. I will be very, very skeptical of Ten Hag if Ten Hag is going into the season thinking that a midfield pivot of Bruno, Mount, and Casemiro is going to work. So, alternatively, you can put Bruno on the right, put Mount obviously in the 8, and then put Mainu and Casemiro, or Casemiro and Amrabat, or Casemiro and Eriksen, or whatever. That can work. But then that means that one of the right wingers, one of the actual wingers, i.e. Anthony or Sancho, and maybe even Ahmad, is going to have to be off the bench. So it is going to be a bit difficult, I think. Maybe Sancho obviously comes in on the left and plays on the left because he's done that before. But obviously Garnacho's there. But yeah, but fully answer your question, Stephanie. I don't think his position will be under threat that much because Ten Hag believes in him and insisted he sign a new contract. So I think Rashford will be given, as long as he's fit, Rashford will be given as much time as possible, unless he completely downs tools. I don't know what you think about that, Tom. Oh, Tom, you there? Oh, he's not. Okay, that's fine. We'll continue on the Q&A. But yeah, Ryan says, smash the like buttons, please do. Ryan again says, is that true? Amrabat will cost £50 million. We haven't put a bid in for Amrabat yet. And 50 million. I mean, if anything, the reports were that it was going to be somewhere between 30 to 35 euros. So yeah, we're definitely not spending more than 50 million for Amrabat. That's not happening at all. It's not. Who has more pass completions next season out of this question? So, Tom, who do you think will have more pass completions next season out of Onana, Bruno, or somebody else, presumably?
She's going in. She's going in, Stephanie, isn't she? On Bruno. Who's going to have more pass completions?
Yes.
Well,
I can see the joke. I saw the joke. So, but I was just thinking it will be Onana, but
digging to somebody out. I mean, even in saying that with Onana, when we saw the Real Madrid game, I don't remember him doing a 30-40 yard pass. I could be wrong. I can't remember him doing one. Because I don't think he played a 30-40 yard pass out to either of the wingers, Garnacho or Antony, because they were never going to get the ball ahead of a Carvajal or ahead of a... I can't remember who played left back for Real Madrid. I think it was Garcia. Physically imposing defenders, you're not going to get the ball over a 30 yard pass from either of your wingers. Rashford maybe would have been somebody that you could have aimed at on the wing, but more to the point, when I saw him, especially for last season with Inter Milan, when he had somebody to aim at in terms of a number 9, like a Dzeko, a physical, imposing number 9, who can take the ball down on his chest or can, be a deep runner, make a deep run back toward the midfield and pick up the ball, and you can play a 40-yard pass straight down the throat and spine of a team, then by all means there's a potential there. But I think who have more pass completions? Depends how we play, though. That's the problem. If we're going to play the style that I think Ten Hag wants to play, on the front foot, final third sort of football, and I call it anyway, halfway line football. If we're going to play that sort of football, then I think Onana will have more pass completion. Based upon that, I think Fernandes is more a case of that final pass and then put somebody in to score. Whereas Onana, I don't think it's going to be more about that. I think he's just going to be more based upon that he's going to be involved in the build-up, or he's going to dictate the tempo of how we pass the ball or how quick we play in transition. That's just how I think anyway. So I think probably Onana, if I had to give an answer.
What do you think about Bruno playing Bruno on the right wing? I don't like it.
No.
I don't like it. I don't
No. Playing centrally.
But I don't know whether Ten Hag will do this thing to try to get Mount and Bruno into the squad if he does that, because that's why I still to this day don't understand the Mount signing, because it's like you spend that amount and you gave him number 7. So to do what exactly? Because you made Bruno captain, so you've got to play both of them, but you can't play Mount and Bruno and just Casemiro alone. That doesn't. I just don't. I don't see how it's going to work. Even if they both press, we'll still get overrun by better teams, And Mount and Bruno are not quick, so I don't know. Dees says, if Spurs are going to sell Kane to Bayern, why are they not looking for a replacement? That's a good question, actually. Maybe they are, but we don't know about it.
They don't have the money, though. That's the problem.
They don't have the money.
they don't have the money yet. So
they don't have money yet.
You don't know how much you're going to get for
currently in jail. So those are probably the two factors. You know, they don't have the money and they're in jail.
Yeah,
and the owner is in jail.
You don't know how much you're going to get for Kane either. So you don't know what market you can aim in. Like if you get over 100 million pounds, you could, like you say, go for a. I know it's obviously a long shot, but you could be in the market looking at upwards of an Osimhen or something like that if you wanted a direct comparison of a player, or if you get closer to 100 million, you know, closer to maybe 90 million, you might look at, say, what we're doing for, say, a Højlund, that profile. Colin Moani springs to mind for me anyway. That's that sort of player for them. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Or they could do a complete opposite and go for a really, really young player like an Evan Ferguson or somebody like that, maybe.
True.
Do what they did with Kane, really.
Given Brighton, they're not gonna sell him for anything less than 80 million, at least you'd expect. So it'll be quite difficult for them, you know. So CAICEDO, yeah. So no more manager change on the Glazers. Ten Hag still hasn't been feedback. Yeah, exactly. I want longevity now. To be honest, like at the end of the day, Klopp, the most successful teams in the Premier League in recent memory have been Klopp and Pep, and they've got the longevity. You know, the whole changing managers every single season or 2 seasons isn't going to work, and is expensive because you have to then get rid of the players that this new manager doesn't want and sell and transition, and ultimately it's expensive and it's money that people don't have. So I hope it works with Ten Hag, and so long as like the players don't down tools, you know, even if we finish, you know, 6th or 7th or whatever, like, you know. We can't afford to do it, but we're not. I don't believe we will. Let's have a look. City are being carefully watched. They can't do their usual scams. That is true. That is true. That's what I'm saying. The FFP thing has really hit, I think, people. This it's almost like you wait for everything like, right, we need to do something about it now. And so I think a lot of clubs are being very, very careful with what they do and how they balance the books, etc. Otherwise, there's going to be problems. Chelsea not playing in Europe. Is this regarding? Sorry, I can't remember. Is this regarding getting top 4 for Chelsea or the quality that they have? That will help them. That will help them. That will help them. United, City, Newcastle, Liverpool, Brighton, Arsenal are the top 6. Oh yeah, these are the top 6 actually, as opposed to the top 7 or top 7. Yeah. I was saying traditional top 6, traditional. But yeah, it's you could you could make a case that well, I don't know. Maybe Chelsea will come back. Who knows? Maybe they will come back. I agree with this list. Apart from Arsenal, everyone seems slow. Have a key question. Jackson unproven. Would I be right in thinking that Man City will be even better next season? Arsenal will be less fruitful than last season. I don't think you'd be wrong. I said City have 2 squads. They've always had 2 squads. So the only hope is that, like, I mean, if they let Bernardo Silva go, they let Gundogan go, who for me was one of their most clutch players, which I thought was mad. If they let Bernardo Silva go, then I think it gets interesting. If Bernardo Silva and Kai Walker leave as well, then I think it gets interesting. It gets a little bit interesting, I think, depending on who they bring in. I still think they'll have enough, but Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Kyle Walker, you know, and I don't think KDB had a great season. Well, it was okay, but you know, they were better. So I don't know. But Arsenal, I have a feeling if Arsenal don't sign a proper striker and Gabriel Jesus is not a striker, then yes, they'll be less fruitful. They need to sign a proper striker. Deadline day, FFP is lies. It probably is. Deadline day drama makes me thinks for a lot of clubs. I agree. Højlund in, Mohamed Kudus in. I don't think Kudus is that good, to be honest. I don't think Kudus is that great. I don't think he is. Let's see, any questions? Let's try and get to, let's try and get to 30 likes. Although, are we on 32? Okay. Chelsea not matching City or Arsenal, put the debate to one side. Once we gel as a team, players will have more longevity. Our erratic style play takes years of players. That's a fair point. Any chance we go without the situation in Juventus? I don't know. It looks like that. I mean, Tom, are you there still? It's probably away. Okay. But from what I've seen and from what Tom has shared with me, United are not. It could be because they've been burnt by the whole Rabiot situation, but there's no links to Vlahovic at all. I think that from a forwarding point of view, as it Kone, I think it is that United will probably go for as a second option before they even think about going for Vlahovic. I don't think United linked with any Juventus players really, but we'll see. Sheik was to be one of the candidates to be next president of football months if Shakespeare says from sources in Doha. Shout out to Sheik, man. Shout out to you, buddy. Shout out to you, man. Not on the other top asset on the side. And one more. Yes, let's get that to 30 likes. Let's get it. Let's get it done, guys. Right. Okay. I'm out. But great. Thanks, guys. I really actually enjoyed this. Very chilled, very relaxed. We're going to probably try and make this a weekly thing. Thanks everyone who voted in the poll. So yeah, we will basically have this as a weekly show. Q&A. Like I said, it could be anything. Football related, Manchester United related, movie, TV, etc. So I'm going to make this as open as possible. But thank you so much. Really appreciate everyone who's watching in. Really appreciate Tom. Tom, I think, is busy, but Tom will probably be back. And we'll probably get different people on as well. Tom will obviously come on a lot, but we'll maybe get other people as well, maybe guest appearances on the weekly Q&A. If some people even in the chat, if you want to become a member of the channel, we'll consider bringing members on as well, other United fans. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and X. I'm going to be posting my Oppenheimer review on Red Marble tomorrow, so stay tuned for that as well. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace.